Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's session, we're going to be doing part 2 of the squat guide. And what we're going to be covering today is primarily ankle flexibility, how it relates to getting in position, and neutral spine and why it's important for the exercise. So in part 1, we briefly covered how ankle flexibility is a limiting factor for a lot of people when they start the squat, especially with X3. Remember that we're using variable resistance, so as you increase upwards, it's increasing the tension, so the lift gets progressively harder. So you need to be able to have the posture and form technique solid enough to support you at the bottom and the top. So let's talk ankle flexibility. We in Western culture, I'm assuming most of my viewers here are in industrialized states or cities or cultures, where we sit in chairs a lot, we eat at tables, we sit at desks all day. And in doing that, we've actually weakened our body's natural resting position, and we've lost the flexibility to rest in a position that humans are actually biomechanically designed to rest. So this is actually a resting position in many places in the world. And it's, people sometimes use derogatory terms for that, but that's actually how our body is designed to, instead of just sitting in a chair, if you have the flexibility to support that, you can sit like that for a very long time comfortably. That's also a position that is the start of the squat. So if you don't have the ability to get to that position where you're all the way down, feet flat on the ground, ankles really bent in, that's going to really prevent you from, one, protecting your body as you attempt the squat, and two, getting you in position in the first place. Because we're using bands, the higher up you have to be to try and put the band on you, you're going to be under tension. So ideally, you want to be able to get all the way to the bottom before you're trying to get under. So let's talk about how you can overcome issues with ankle flexibility and how that relates to progressing into keeping a neutral spine. When I say neutral spine, what I mean by that is that generally throughout the movement, you don't want your spine curved or arced. You want it in generally a straight line so that the base of your neck is essentially in a single line down to your hips. Okay, so in that position, we're going to talk about that a lot through a lot of the different guides here. It's a very common term in strength training and lifting principles, and it's absolutely core to everything you do, because if you don't maintain a neutral spine, you can seriously hurt yourself. So if you want a lot more detail on that, I would go Google it to get in-depth explanations on why. I'm not going to do that here to keep this video shorter, but neutral spine is absolutely important. Okay, ankle flexibility. So let's assume you have poor ankle flexibility and you can't get in that position that I demonstrated where you're all the way down at the base comfortably. So the first thing you can do is elevate your heel, okay? There's multiple ways to do this. So the first is you can go get a shoe like this. As you notice, it's got this big platform on the bottom, so your heel actually rests almost an inch off the, from where the shoe is touching the ground. Your heel is elevated, so not quite a high heel, but it's a little bit up there. What that does is that it essentially negates the fact that you're lacking the flexibility. When your heels are elevated, your ankle doesn't have to bend in as far where it connects to your leg, so you're able to actually comfortably get in that position without having to be over flexing your muscles. Okay, so the first is get a shoe potentially. There's a ton of different brands, Nike, Adidas. There's probably Rogue probably has one. Google Olympic lifting shoe. That's probably your best bet to start that, if that's the route you want to go. And there's a myriad of options. So I personally have a Nike one because I'm able to get discount Nike stuff from a family connection. So I got these years ago. I'm not an Olympic powerlifter, so I'm not using them every day. They've lasted me now for almost 5 years. So this is kind of an old shoe, but it still looks pretty new because I never wear it outside of a gym and or now in my office working with X3. So that's an option. The second is to use something else to elevate your heel. Now with X3, it's a little bit trickier than just going to the gym. Let me back up a little bit. A common technique with a lifting, cage where you've got the squat bar, is you just put like some 5-pound weights, the plates underneath someone's heel, you know, because they've got that rubberized mat usually inside the platform so that when they don't slide around. So that's an option you could do if you have some little weights that are going to stick to your platform and not slide out on you. That's a great option because, you know, they're convenient, they're small, they're easy to move. Another is you can do something like what I've got here. This isn't the greatest demonstration. I don't really have to elevate my heels, so I haven't had to make some fancy custom solution for me, but you may want to consider testing how high you need it to be without the bar. So you want to be able to step down safely, right? It needs to be firm on your platform and getting your heels up enough so that you can get to this position, okay? For some of you, it may only need to be a thin little elevation to get to that position comfortably. For others, it may need to be pretty significant. So I've just got some extra mats here that I'm laying over the edge of my platform. It won't work to put it under the platform because then it's not helping. You're still standing on the platform, you know, and your ankle would have to flex just as much. So it has to go on top. Two, it's safer that way because we don't want the platform sliding. Remember, we're essentially making a giant slingshot as we do X3. So you need to make sure that it's very stable because if you fall off while it's under tension, your platform is going to go through your ceiling or worse. And that's not what we want. So to demonstrate this today, this is a way. There are probably 1,000 different ways you could do this. Generally something more solid is going to be a better choice. You don't want something squishy when you're doing squats. You want the platform to be as firm as possible for increased stability, especially if you're starting out. The more stable it can be, the better off you are as you learn how to master it. So maybe go get a plank, plastic or wood or something, put something rubber on the bottom of it so that it sticks real nice to your X3 platform, and then that way it's not sliding around. If you have the newer platforms, I think they're made of metal, and they actually have, I think, a wider platform, so it'll be even easier to do this now for those of you needing to elevate your heel. But if you notice, this isn't exactly a thick platform I'm standing on, but it is elevating my heels just a little bit. And so what it does is essentially eases your ability to get in position to account for that lack of flexibility, okay? So find a height that works for you so that you can get to this position. And you may notice that it makes it a lot easier to load the bar and band properly before you do your first squat, okay? And then from here on out, it's just the same as any standard squat. You're not changing anything else. Deep breath, slow and controlled. Make sure your body stays solid and stay in that good motion, keeping your elbows high. Okay, now we talked about neutral spine. If you notice, my spine is pretty much in the exact same position throughout the entire movement, okay? If you start hunching your spine or arcing or any of that kind of thing, you're now changing the point of friction from your legs taking the load to now a singular point in your spine. I think you can see how dangerous that can be, especially if you're arcing forward, right? With loading, if you're near the top of the load and you're kind of hunched like this, you could seriously hurt yourself. So pay close attention to as you move from the squat through the squat, that you're not like curving like this. Basically, you don't want to be moving at all other than straight up and straight down. And another thing you can do is film yourself. You don't have to share it with anyone. Film it for you to have an honest look, from an unbiased camera looking at how you perform the movement. The bar should travel in almost a perfectly straight line up and down, okay? It shouldn't be going too far forward or backwards throughout the movement, okay? So that's called bar path. You'll hear that referred to a lot, both by myself and others. The bar path should be almost a singular straight line, okay? People who are really good at the squat, way better than me, their bar path is like a perfect line. Like if you took a ruler and measured it, it wouldn't move at all. And that's ideally where you want to get to. That means your neutral spine is in perfect position, and you're loading your body properly in the way it was designed to take the force. Okay, so those two come into play here. so that if you're lacking the ankle flexibility, it not only makes it harder to get in position, but it makes it harder to keep a neutral spine from the get-go. And if you're not in a neutral spine to start, it's really hard to recover it and dangerous. So let's talk now for progressing beyond needing an elevated heel. So you see I've got 2 layer platforms here. So for this example, let's say I'm just using these platforms. Again, not the greatest solution, but it would work. Over time, as you get more, your body starts training through this position and you get stronger all over. You're also building some flexibility. You can then try and like take one away and see if you're able to do it with just one piece, or if you were at 3 to 2, whatever, right? Reduce the height at which your heels are elevated and see if you're able to do it. And if you are, then do it at that height. And then, in a couple weeks, try again with nothing or a lower platform. Basically, you want to taper off of an elevated heel, because then you'll truly have the strength and flexibility that you're desiring to get to, which is going to be core to your squats and the success with them. But this is a method that you can use to, as you're starting out especially, kind of negate the fact that you're lacking flexibility, and to safely work on the squat without compromising your neutral spine. It will make it a lot easier to get under the bar. It'll make it a lot easier to get started because you're in a better position with your spine and your torso. And then you should be able to push yourself a little bit harder because you started from a stronger position. Keep in mind with the squat specifically, if you feel like you're getting to a point where your form is being compromised, stop. Especially early on, if you're not very experienced with lifting, if you haven't been using X3 for a long time, or you have existing injuries. I have existing injuries. I don't really, when I feel like I'm done with squat, I stop, because I don't want to aggravate those injuries in my spine. One bad rep, if you're leaning a little bit too far forward and you go for it real hard when you're real tired, you may have just hurt yourself for the rest of your life. It's just not worth it, okay? It's just one day. Not every day is going to be as good as the next. That's fine. We're human beings. You're going to have ups and downs. It's just, if your overall trend is still improving, you're improving, okay? My quality of reps fluctuates up and down every week. Keep that in mind as you do the squat. As you get more tired, you're inherently going to get worse form. We all do it. The greatest athletes in the world do it. That's why fatigue is a real thing, and that's why, NFL football players and all that kind of stuff, that's why when you get late game, they talk about that's why it's crunch time, is because everyone is exhausted and depleted, and everyone's getting worse at what they're doing because you're just degrading. We're human beings. We can't be machines. So your form is going to be one of the first things to go when your brain, you're just consumed by how tired you are. So if you're really getting to that point early on, it's probably best just to stop and understand, okay, I worked hard, I'm making progress, and I did it safely. You're going to get better and better and better. Some people fly right through it and they get better really quick. Others, it may take you, a year, who knows? All that matters is your journey and protecting your body, okay? You're involving your spine here. It is worth being overly cautious. And then that leads into the next point. Even if you are experienced, I don't know if you can see too much in my office, but I do not let anyone, I work out in my little office at home when I'm not traveling, and I lock the door. I listen to music because for me that works, but maybe you just need complete silence to listen to your body. But I don't have people around me, I don't have the TV on, I'm not distracted. I'm solely focused on me and the bar and how I'm moving myself with the bar. So it's a little long-winded, but it's super important to understand how important or how fundamental your heel position and spine is, and your concentration with your form throughout the squat, because failure is very not fatal, but very, very bad with the squat if you do it incorrectly. So recap, if you need heel elevation, you can use shoes. You can create a little platform. It needs to be wide enough for your heel to go on the base of your X3 platform, but you don't want it so big that it's like covering most of your foot. You're just trying to get the heel off the platform just a little bit without having to be flexing your legs. It will support you to do the squats better, and ideally you want to start tapering down the height of that elevation. So don't go fashion some permanent fixture to your platform, because one, you don't need it for the other movements, and two, you want to eventually get to the point where you don't need it. Now, the only thing I didn't talk about is, let's say you've had like a severely broken ankle or something like that, or some crazy injury or condition that will just always prevent you from doing that. Then just always have a platform. There's no harm in that, right? Like, this gets debated a lot in the user group about using things to augment your body. I'll do a separate video on that and my thoughts on it, but especially with the squat, I think it's worth maybe having a less perfect squat, from like an Olympic perspective, but still gain the benefit of doing the conditioning with an elevated heel than it is if you were unable to do it, period. So, it may not be perfect, but it's better than nothing. So, something to consider. That's just George's personal recommendation. That'll be it for this video. From here, the next squat guides are going to be more advanced techniques and things to consider, and especially as you get to that failure point with X3, how to ensure that your form is staying solid as you increase the tension and increase your ability to do the reps. So thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you feel like it. If not, whatever. We're just here to help. And comment. Last request of anyone watching this: if you have made modifications because you needed an elevated heel, please share and describe what you did to help you do that. Because like I said, I never had to do it really, so I don't really have a whole ton of examples. If you have great examples, please post them here so that others can benefit from your experience. And you don't need to go spend a ton of money to do it. It can literally be a piece of wood or foam or whatever, right? Don't go break the bank just to elevate your heel. So that's it. Thanks. Take care.